I'm going to start the recording. All right. Hi, all. Welcome to the 6/1 issue. We're always super excited for the summer issue because it launches our new volume, and it's really like a wonderful moment. If you have signed up to read, then that's completely great. You're going to be reading in the order that you put on the sign up sheet. If you did not sign up, you can still read or present your piece. That's completely fair. Just let us know. All right. So without further ado, here is the link again to the full summer issue. If you like to read along, I'll be linking the pieces as we go. Our first presenter could not be here due to travel. And her piece is It Was Night When You Died. So I'm going to read this piece by Nikki Hummel. All right, for JL. Clean white sheets strung across the dusty road, and us just down the hill at the bayou, baptizing ourselves in each other's names. Me tripping around the tree stumps, and your summer smile, all peanut butter skies and patchy hair, still smelling like smoke from our trip past the silos, the fire too big, but full of the same splendor as your hands. After the sunset, we rolled in grass and lit lighthouses on our heads. Soon your mind swelled balloon, and nothing to relieve the pressure. You decide you're done with soil stains and take to the sky. You choose to go. I can't pick what is fact, but I can decide what is true. Your eyes shed their light. I sat beside myself, waited for my feathers, a chance to go too. Right. Yeah, and feel free to put little reacts in the chat. We love to see that. Our next piece is a really beautiful poem by Adamu Yahuza Abdullahi called 2002, 2024.
Hi, Maria. Hi, everyone. Hi. All right. My piece is titled 2002 2024 for Suleiman Awal. I watched it die, my good friend. I stood there, helpless, like anything before fire, blind and armless, like water. What use are arms if they can't save me from myself? I stood, poetry in my one hand, the shahada in the other, as if to push them down your throat and say, these are the only things I've got. As if language could buy you more breath. Awal, at the janaza, the imam said nothing bad comes from God. I cannot help but think this was what he meant. The beauty in how God watches the air in your lungs rust in your mouth. How it whitens as it bleeds through the gap in your teeth like a cursed wind. How after he died, we buried you like a tender seed. And how the ground swallowed you as if you were the first sporadic rainfall. Tell it anyway. He was hopelessly in the silence. Dear friend, I know every grave closes its mouth eventually, but there is enough blankness to be buried where your emptiness stops, enough absence to feel holy. A man, in a bid to console me, said God's biggest blessing could be absence. If to be blessed implies wearing your lifelessness like a skin, I plead to be glorified in my reign. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful reading and a beautiful poem. We were so into these poems, ideas of grief and the exploration. Like we have White Christmas, It Was Night When You Died, 2002, 2024. Yeah, it's just really beautiful. Next up is Caroline with a piece that is pretty close to my heart and one that I think maybe I gave Brooke some fits because my edits were a little late. Sorry about that. With Girlhood Gothic.
Yes, so this is a longer piece, so I'm just going to read the first 250 words and the last 250 words. Girlhood Gothic. 2001. American malls are booming. Department store sales reaching an all-time high at $19.9 billion. There are malls with roller coasters, aquariums, wedding chapels. Cars pack parking lots, people pack stores, and clothes pack bags, bulging against paper seams. At 11, Laura's mom let us go by ourselves for the first time. Stay together, be careful, she said from the sunken depths of their purple couch, smoke coiling from her mouth like a Wonderland caterpillar. In our southern suburban backwater, a highway exit turned almost town. Every street that didn't end in a cul-de-sac led to the mall. We held hands as we entered, the doors breathing open at our approach. Open sesame, we said, and the mall unfolded before us, a treasure trove of possibilities. Ahead, a fountain glittered, dewy and musical. Teens lolled around its edges, midriffs exposed as they leaned towards the water, sucking on white plastic cups of soda with one hand, tapping at Nokia phones with the other. Beads and feathers and colored clip-ins rippled in their hair when they moved, as hard and sleek and immortal as the mall's marble concourses. This was the place to be, and here we were. Where should we go first? I asked Laura. Still clutching my hand, she dragged me towards the Nordstrom wing. We ducked beneath spritz samples of Paris Hilton's new perfume, dodged snapping mouths of Chi hair straighteners. Come try, come try. Come by, come by. Scrolling to the end. Okay, 2017. 7,000 mall retailers, many of them department stores, have closed their doors. In desperation, communities begin to repurpose their malls. They pick at the corpses of these dead leviathans, scavenging, salvaging. We're determined to find something of value in the wreckage. I turn off the exit, blinker clicking like film in a teacher's old projector. Click, there's the McDonald's where I used to get breakfast. Click, there's my old bus stop. Click, there's the turnoff to my old neighborhood. Click. In the distance, I see it coming. I'm back in town for the first time in years. Couldn't avoid it. My mom's remarrying. I'm happy for her, but I don't like being back here. Too much is the same. Too much has changed. The mall rises up like a ruin in the driver's side window. I slow to a stop at the red light, drumming my nails against the wheel. The parking lots are empty, plastic grocery bags windmilling like tumbleweeds over faded lines. The Sears sign has been taken down, but not away. Busted out and faded, it leans over padlocked glass doors. The light turns green. I press the gas. The mall slips past, hollow and howling, like a crumbling castle, a haunted house on a hill. Ghosts walk its marble concourses, charm bracelets clattering like chains, moaning, come try, come try, come by, come by. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a great reading. And I really love the choice to read the beginning and ending. So, y'all, there's a whole story in the middle. Go read it. It's really great. Yes. Right. Now we have another great prose piece. This is Portrait Under the Stairs. Yeah. Chidera, I think you might be frozen. Can you hear us at all? Right. Tech stuff happens sometimes. So I think we will skip forward one, and then when Chidera comes back, we can take a look at that. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. This is Melding Buildings, New York City, and it is presented by Brooke Randall.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Brooke Randall. I'm the prose editor. It's really great to see all of you, especially all the prose writers who I've had the privilege of emailing with a ton. I'm going to read Roger Camp's statement about this piece, Melting Buildings. This photograph was taken in New York City of the mirrored windows of a modern building, which contains the reflection of 3 other buildings in its mirrored surface. Each window pane distorts the reflected buildings to a different degree, and half of the mirrored panes contain a single window of a historic building across the street. As a result, you see one window inside of another, as well as the 4 buildings blended together. I've been fascinated by the reflective qualities of glass since I was a child, as one of my jobs at my parents' hardware store was to empty out a large wooden box filled with the discarded pieces of cut window glass. At one point in my photographic career, I spent 2 years building still lifes constructed of prisms, strips of window glass, wire, and string, and photographed using a light source projected from an industrial prism, bathing the subject in a rainbow of colors.
All right, thank you, Brooke. Thank you to Roger for this gorgeous piece and the sort of artist statement behind it. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a really great sort of distorted image of like this American industrial building complex thing. All right. Hey, Chidera, I see you came back.
Hi.
Yeah. Are you all set? Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I am.
awesome.
I am.
Yeah, you're good to
Okay.
go.
Thank you. I'll be reading an excerpt from my short story, Portraits Under the Stairs. All her life, Angelica had watched her mother clamor for her father's love, beg for it, in fact. And all her life, she had watched her father regard her mother with something akin to disdainful nonchalance, a blistering kind of apathy. Her father had never been physically cruel to her mother, and yet, for as long as Angelica could remember, she cried for him, by him, at him. It might have been this, the unattainability of his love, that caused her mother to love him even more. Or it might have been that the more he hurt her with his words, glares, silences, and cheating, the more she wanted to prove, not just to him, but also to herself, that she was worthy of his affection. Angelica registers that the priest said something about the virtues of keeping a marriage secret. And for a brief moment, she glances at her father with quiet accusation in her eyes. He is seated in the front pew of the church, a missal clutched in one hand, his other hand placed rather affectionately on her mother's thigh. In that moment, they are a picture of a content and otherwise happy couple. But she catches the tightness in her mother's face, as though this, her husband's performance of affection, is something she cannot wholly fathom. A memory strikes Angelica. In the memory, her mother, looking vaguely beautiful in a red sequined dress with her ichafu falling loosely over her shoulder and exposing the curls of her newly permed hair, barges through the front door of their parlor and collapses to the floor in a flagrant display of grief. Even as a child, Angelica suspects that there is something about her mother's display that has been colored by melodrama, by theater. Your father has been acquired by the devil. Uchechukwu screams these words over and over again, lying on the cold tiles and raising her voice with such incisive sharpness that Angelica fears that she might succeed in shattering the pristine glass table in the middle of the room. She begins to cry, and Angelica rushes to gather her, this newly free woman, into her arms. She rocks her as gently as her awkward flailing posture can allow and whispers, "It's okay, Mama. Ndo, sorry, don't cry. Everything will be all right." Angelica wills wellness into the surrounding air, but the wellness does not come. Her mother does not speak for days, only enraptured by her grief, rage, and self-pity. Long stretches of fragile silence taint the house. Fela does not play on the gramophones in the evening, and the silence becomes thick enough to be stifling. Her father does not apologize. Now, as she stands before the altar and says a breathy "I do" to the reverend's questions, Angelica wonders if, like her parents, Livinus will spend the rest of his life clamoring for her affection. She wonders if she will one day cave. Thank you.
I just love this piece. Yeah, it's really worth going and looking at the rest of it. I really like major props to, I think it was Praise the end of this one, right? Yeah, major props to him. And thank you for the great reading. Um, yeah, I guess I guess we have a lot of prose pieces in a row here. But we're gonna go ahead and do Quadriptych of an Open Relationship. Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello. First, I want to thank everybody so much for such great readings. I'm really grateful to be here listening to you all. I'm going to be reading the first section from my quadriptych, so I hope you guys enjoy it. 1. Blank is the first man. I know he wants me the first day we meet in philosophy class. Something in the way he spreads his legs as I shed my coat full of wintry morning, or maybe the slant of his look, or the tenor of his jokes, or his questions about my philosophy of friendship. The way he asks if I really am bi after I share my sexuality, how he thought I was a lesbian, his interest in my open relationship, how eager he is to share his poetry. I have been pining after another classmate, a girl with dark hair and dark eyes who is named for an oracle, and I decide that she has become my muse. I want her in a way that ties a knot in my tongue, and I spend pages of my time writing poems for an archer from Taurus. I am sure that she is straight, so I resolve to never tell her how I feel. Instead, I go home every night and share my crushes with my girlfriend, who pays all our bills and puts me through school and cares for my dog, who loves me, who stays in the closet and does not desire to make love to me. My girlfriend has been pining after a classmate of her own, a boy with dark hair and dark eyes who is named for a wolf. She tells me that I'm Blank's muse, and I preen at the idea of so much power over a man. My girlfriend tells me to pursue this if I want, reminds me that I do not need to ask her for permission, that we finally decided it's okay to be open. So when he invites me to a party 3 days shy of 21, I tell him yes, knowing exactly where it will lead. Half a bottle of tequila later, he asks me if I'm flirting with him, and I tell him that I'm like literature, open to interpretation. So he kisses me on a stranger's balcony and buys me tacos that I don't touch before we Uber to his apartment in the heart of Cambridge. I tell him he's the first, and he tells me to use less teeth. All is well until tequila wells in my throat, and I'm on my knees in front of his toilet, texting my girlfriend that I can't stop vomiting, calling for an ambulance because I'm feeling too faint, and I can't believe that this is how she's meeting Blank. Helping me out of his apartment, refusing the ambulance because it will cost us far too much, taking an Advil even though I can't keep any water down, and somehow I make it back to our apartment in one piece, but something is unquenched. Something disappoints me. And I'm reminding myself that first times are often disappointments. Remembering our first time and how she flinched at the sight of me, accepting that I'm only attracted to how much Blank craves me, grappling with the idea that I can wield my sex like the edge of a sword, learning that I can seduce someone with one long look, filling the void that I attribute to my girlfriend's unwillingness to touch me and my unwillingness to leave her, because she is my first, because she must be the last, depending on her and all the security she gifts me. I tell her that I must stay with her, that in accepting her money, I have cuffed myself to her ankles and must learn to love the taste of dust kicked in my mouth. I fall asleep in her arms and am grateful that she takes care of me. Thank you.
Thank you for that great reading. Yes, like I seriously go look at the piece, read the rest of it. It's really it's just so great. Whenever I saw this, I was like, oh my gosh, this piece is speaking to me. So thank you so much for writing it. Yeah, it's just great. All right. Yes, and up next is a poem that I know very well, which is Crossing. Alvin actually submitted this as an editorial feedback, and I liked it so much I begged him to resubmit it. And this is the product of us working together. Alvin, I'm so excited for you to read your poem.
Hi everyone. I'd actually asked for someone to read it for me, or did you not get that request?
Oh yeah, no, that's right. I'm so sorry. Who's I
No.
think it's Mohammed? Yes, yes, Mohammed is
Yes,
reading for
can you hear
you.
me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes.
All right, let me go on. Crossing by Alvin Atembe. As we approach the Atlantic's western shore, America's outstretched arm rises from the ocean. Long Island's palm, either open to us in welcome or a warning to come no further. My ancestors' kin made this passage in the licking bowels of ships, tracking the hypotenuse of a trade route. We make ours at 43,000 feet above sea level, The currents up here, while stronger, are not nearly as turbulent, and we count the cost of our crossing in hours instead of months. We left Nairobi in darkness and chased west after the night. Now New York unfolds before us, the rising sun red on the wings of this dreamliner. My ancestors' kin made this passage as cargo in the holds of American vessels. Today we approach her shore as pilots, sitting at the helm.
Thank you so much for the reading, Mohammed. Yeah, it's really a fantastic poem. I think like the second and third readings also really open it up too. Right. Next, we have Andrew's Bella Polk. Andrew, I was really struck by the place in this story. So I was really excited to see it and kind of code through it. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you everyone for your readings. It's really exciting to share in this experience. I'm just going to read from the first section. So, Belle Epoque. Doctors are such idiots. The thing is, they don't know they're idiots. Take the guy who had me out for drinks last night in Back Bay. 5 minutes of back and forth on the dating app assured that he would pay for everything, as long as I played the dumb, interested college boy. A know-it-all that wouldn't believe me if I told him that chasing the bug was the best way for a 19-year-old gay runaway like me to get health care. I had friends who'd taken the government up on the offer, but I won't tell him about that. I won't tell him that my name is Yasha or that Boston is the second East Coast city I've made my own. 5th overall if you don't count my parents' place outside of Detroit, which I don't because I bailed when I was 13, when their hearts and minds were still in Poland anyway. The doctor took a long drag of his Macallan and leaned into the middle of the table. He was at least 20 years older than me, his polo and khakis tailored into a second skin that underscored his time in the gym. I can tell you're having a good time by the way your pupils are dilated, he said, and sighed gasoline. He worked at Mass General and said he'd seen me on the common. The trees hadn't quite bloomed yet, and the worst heat didn't linger past sunset. That's amazing, I said. Anyone able to enter another person's headspace for a fraction of a second would have seen through my act. The good doctor smirked and his big head bobbled to one side. The low lights and mahogany walls really enhanced the effect. He'd said discreet in his profile, but was willing to meet in a public space. A tangled, perfect mess. I smirked too, like we were in on some big secret, and twisted in my seat. What else? Our waiter asked if we needed anything, and I looked at the doctor. Let him take over. That's what I give, and sex. He gives drink and breakfast and a couple of small items from his place that he won't even miss. My first year out, before I'd wised up to the system, a social worker called it survival sex. I was thinner then, if you can believe it. I sleep better now, and my clothes fit. She meant well, all the helpers do. The doctor ran his tongue along his teeth. You think you've got it all figured out, he said, and chuckled. A real know-it-all. Hell, I was too at your age. The vodka in my Sprite burned my throat. Poured out from a nip in my pocket when only the doctor was looking. Man, did his eyes light up. I know a lot of things, I said, and realized I was drunk. His foot slithered up my leg under the table, and I giggled to counteract my squirm. Such as, he said, your pupils are dilated too. What bullshit, but I'm pretty sure they were. His lips melted out like putty, and his eyes closed like Venus flytraps poked with a stick. I'd found a bed for the night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Great piece. Yes, so definitely another piece to put on your reading list for later. I promise that the rest of it is just as good. So we have our really like amazing cover. I just want to say, like, I I just love this. When I saw it, I just like gasped. Like James sent it to me on Slack. I was like, this is our cover. Are you kidding me? Um, so Jules, you can read your artist statement or, whatever you want to say about the piece. That's completely fine. I'm going to share my screen and make this a little bit smaller so we can kind of see it.
Well, this was the least one that I expected of all the ones I sent to be selected. So it was a surprise to me that it was the one chosen. And now I'm so glad that I got to hear everybody else read first, or a lot of others read first, because I haven't finished digesting the issue yet, although I have enjoyed what I've read thus far. And I can see now why, even though it wasn't anything I said in my artist piece, that the energy of this one has so many common threads with a lot of the things that are being read and the topics and shared. And I didn't even realize some of that myself until you guys started reading. And I love how art does that, and it kind of grows on its own after it is created. So my mom happened to pass away in the summer 14 years ago, and art is how I have processed a lot of that grief and tried to keep my head above water. So as you said, a lot of the poems and pieces writing in this piece have a lot of different aspects of grief within. This is kind of my way of resisting drowning in that and exploring ways to still celebrate beauty and find blessings in the days and remember her zest for life. So that's interesting to me that a lot of those pieces happen to have that. And the other aspect of it is a lot of wildness. So I didn't plan what I was going to say or read because that's how the piece evolved on its own. And it has aspects of resistance because I used masking fluid for those flowers in the very beginning, which I drew with a dropper, like a eyedropper, medicine dropper thing. So very loose, you can't control the lines very well with that. And then all the color came over top of that, but that underneath is still shines through at the end. So it's got a lot of layers, a lot of wildness. And I feel like that's another aspect of some of the things you guys have been reading has been those exploring yourselves and others and your relationships and discovery. And so this piece has a lot of that energy in it as well. And the last thing I wanted to share is that it's called Ink Flowers, and it has homemade pokeberry ink, which if anybody knows what pokeberry is, it's a weed that grows all over in the southern Blue Ridge Mountains and Appalachians. And I painted with it as a kid, throwing berries against walls and stuff. I just couldn't resist the luscious, vibrant color. And so I made some ink with it, mixed with other store-bought inks in this piece. And so it's been that reconnecting to some of the land, learning about plant allies and reconnecting to them that I feel like I lost and didn't have growing up, knowing a lot of that. So I've been taking foraging classes and apothecary classes and learning more about that. But I felt so disconnected to, even though I was born on a hippie farm, that my parents didn't know a lot of that stuff. So I've been searching and seeking for a lot of that, I think. And I didn't have a long lineage I don't know a lot of that because one of my grandparents was adopted. So I think it's all been part of that, just reconnecting to the land and trying to learn how much this amazing, plentiful place has to offer that we just touched the surface of. And that mall piece is kind of interesting about that because it was, about something different than the natural aspects. It's just so interesting to me hearing everything. So thank you so much for letting my work be the invitation on the cover to everyone else's. And I'm so grateful to be part of this group together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jules. Yeah, I totally, the more I look at it, like the more I start to see things. And I think it's one of those things where like the longer you look, the more sort of you can see these sort of iterative hints at like fruit or like natural landscapes or other things. And I think that layering is really a great way to talk about the pieces and the issue, because that's definitely true. Like they're all very layered and complex in and of
I love
themselves.
that you
So,
mentioned the landscapes too, because there's like these parts that could be lakes or streams or forests. And I do the same thing as I look at it and zoom in with it. So I'm glad that you're enjoying it, and I am grateful to be part of this. So thank you.
yeah, no, thank you. Right, I think next is Audrey Ann's piece, Tadpoles. And it's going to be read by Michael.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Michael.
So,
Yeah,
I'll be reading Tadpole by Audrey Ann. I'll be reading the first paragraph and the last paragraph. So, brother in oversized rubber boots, snow pants with holes in the knees, traces the cracks in the ice with his fingertips. With every clunking step of my boots, I test the limits of the ice shattering, imagining my feet sinking to the bottom of the pond. Do you think they are still fighting? Brother asks. He looks back at the house, looming behind us, its shadow cast along the shimmer of the ice. I listen quietly for sounds of my mother's sobbing, the booming echo of my father's exasperated snarls. Their commotion creates a crackling in the distance, a TV station playing static without a remote to change the channel. Instead, I focus on the eyes, on the creatures that wriggle beneath in their own frozen kingdom. The snow flourishes down around us in big wet globs, sticking to our cheeks, to the tips of our noses. For a moment, there is no sound, there is no movement. It is brother and I in a world free from the world. I reach my hand out to catch the falling snow, trying to hold it tight in my hand like a treasure from a discarded wall. The ruin of a universe that belongs only to me, but it melts into water in my palm. Soon, Mama will call for us to come inside, and the snowplow will drive over my makeshift womb, rolling over my mittens in the dirt with it. Soon, spring will come, and the breaking ice will reveal only shallow water beneath. Flowers will bloom, as they always do, and the tadpoles, which fought the cold and won, will wake up one day as frogs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, I really love the great sort of impulse in this flash piece. It reminds me of a flash that we published a few years ago called Ice House, which is also like about family and like wintering. But there's so many beautiful lines in this. So yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for writing it, Audrey. It was really, really great to hear your work. Right, so we have one late addition to the reading. So Chiweniete's piece Confessionem. This is a poem that Muhammad and Michael and Luke and I like. There weren't many poems that like you can get 4 people to agree on and kind of buy into, but this was one that like when we saw it, we were just like, we have to have this poem in the issue. It's gonna be read by our EIC, James Rawling.
Hi, everyone. There's probably nothing more intimidating than reading a poem in front of the author. So Chiwenieté, I hope I do this justice. I will try my best. Confessionem. If only I could want something simpler. Kanika Hucha. Nothing is more certain than my wound. Every day I watch the same fire burn me a little more. I say never again with this addiction. Still, I fall back into the wound. I am hollowed out. I sit with guilt, my confidence shipwrecking. Elsewhere, someone I love is torn open to make room for a syringe. I'm 5 cities away, yet like floodwater, I gather filth. I remember the origin of my addiction, how she had called to say, Chiwenieté, your brother's bleeding. How 2 weeks later, she called again, and this time it was my father who had collapsed with a stroke. I howl and I scratch and I leave the whole room slippery with blood. Hypothesis or law, I'm willing to bend, break if it means starting afresh. Oh, mercy. Oh, relic. Oh, whatever little laughters lodged beneath my throat. The addicted, I have realized, never know how deep the blade. Look at my body, at the flame that falls it from the inside out. Look how someone I love lies motionless, mistaking survival for safe. Yet the world blooms. When all this is over, it's my hope that there will be this poem to show how, sometimes, we can be so stubborn. We make water out of our wound and float.
All right. Thank you so much for the reading. Thank you for the poem. Yes, it's just a great, great poem. I really like that we are kind of ending on this moment. So we're going to shift into the second half of our launch party. Do not be intimidated. I know it can be a little bit difficult, but yeah, if you have a question or a comment for somebody else, that includes us on the staff. If you have comments or questions about Chestnut, please feel free to unmute yourselves and make of that what you will. All right, so I think I'll kick us off today. So Jocelyn, I'm really interested in the format of quadriptych. Like I've seen pieces before that are columnated, and I'm wondering if the piece started with the form or if it started with the idea and then you just found this form as a way to like really express that.
I think it's funny that you asked me this question because it had initially started with the idea of it being a quadriptych for different parts. It was actually going to be three because of three men, but then I realized that the fourth person was maybe one of the like emotionally heaviest people I had been with in my open relationship. But I had initially had it as just kind of one piece, one section after the other. And then a really good friend of mine who actually works at an art museum was like, well, Jocelyn, a lot of quadriptychs are presented at the same time so that you can kind of choose how to experience it. And I hated the idea so much that it sat with me because I was like, I do not want to do that at all. I hate it. Oh my God, that's going to be terrible. And it got to the point where I tried it and I was like, oh, that was the missing piece. And I did it, and that's kind of what turned it into this final form before you guys even took it a level further. So thank you.
I love that. And I know on our end, formatting it was a struggle. So I'm sure you were really pushing back on accepting it, but it works so well. So I think that's fantastic. On the prose side, I think this might be our queerest issue to date. It's a very queer issue. I don't know for sure if it's the most, but I really love how all the pieces are sort of like talking to each other. And so I think one of the first pieces we accepted on the prose side was yours, Andrew. I had the privilege of being able to edit it. It is such a like fast moving, exciting story. I'm wondering if you can just speak to your process in putting the story together, if the idea came to you really quickly, or if you, even before you submitted it to us, had to work on it a lot to really find that like shape and urgency.
Yeah, I guess it's different than other pieces I've been writing, which seem more expansive or play more with time. And for this one, I think the urgency just kind of naturally evolved out of trying to concentrate it into, I think it's like a day or something, not much time passes. And just to really try to embody this person and see how they get through the day. And I mentioned navigating spaces, and that was a really interesting idea for me. I think it was right after COVID, the lockdown lifted. I started going out and exploring spaces again, and I noticed these changes that are the hostile architectural changes that weren't there before. And I just started investigating that and seeing what that was like. And it just ended up with me diving into different beds of research in different areas. And somehow that went into like lack of housing, and then foster care, and somehow all of those threads jumbled together. And I guess I had to distill them in a way that made sense. So that ended up feeling fast paced.
I just want to say something about Jules, about your work. Not even, I love the picture, of course, and that's why we picked it. But what's interesting is you did something which was absolutely brilliant, which I've never seen anybody do. Jules submitted mock-ups of issue covers. So not just her art, but she put Chestnut Review on it. And so so you could actually visualize it. Talk about pushing an idea, right? But it was wonderful because we didn't have to think, how will this work as a cover? Because she gave it to us. And we made some changes. It wasn't exactly like she had mocked it up. But that was as soon as I saw it, I'm like, this is brilliant. I don't know why every artist doesn't do this, because boy, does it help. And it really made it easy to see how different covers would look. So thank you for doing that. It was fun.
You're welcome. And I did it for myself as well to select which ones I was going to submit, because I want my art I want it to be a harmony that, is going to be great for both. It's going to enhance one another. So to me, I don't submit any usually without doing that first, because I want to know that that's going to be a good, happy marriage.
We have chapbooks. We sometimes need a cover artist. So I'm going to put you on speed dial, Jules, because that's really great. Like,
I would
we
be
had a lot
delighted.
of,
I write
yeah.
poetry as well. And I actually wanted to, if I can invite or extend an invitation out there for ekphrastic poetry, for all of you who are here, if you'd like to write a short little haiku ekphrastic poem in response to the cover, I would love to read it or hear it. So if anyone would like to take me up on that, I wrote one just this morning right before coming. A lot of the ones I submitted had them, but this one did not. So I wrote one, and may I read it? It's just 3 lines.
Yes, of course.
It says, ignoring fences, growing wild, flowers serenading the sun. And I just feel like we here are kind of like beyond any fences or boundaries here, collecting, gathering in this way. And I don't know, it's interesting to me that that's what came out this morning. And then to be here and hear this diverse group and see you guys like this wonderful collection of wildflowers. So thank you. And if anyone would like to take me up on that, you can comment on my Instagram where I shared it. I'd love to hear them or read them.
We just watched Shogun, so I'm just thinking about like the people who produce poetry like on command, like, make a poem for this moment. But yeah, I will think about that.
I wanted to ask a little bit about girlhood gothic. One thing I really loved about this piece was the sort of goblin market influence and that aspect of it. And I don't know. I know I saw in your artist statement that this is sort of the titular story of a longer collection. And I'm curious if you could tell me a little bit more about like what are some of the other pieces, what are some of the themes you're exploring in that collection, and what whether you have that sort of like gothic influence and literary influence from other like classic works in the other stories. Also, sorry, I'm keeping my camera off because I'm in somebody else's house, and I feel like having a very like these like very heteronormative family photos like smiling eerily over my shoulder would not be the right energy for this event.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've had the title Girlhood Gothic for a long time because I write so much about girlhood. And I do love Gothic literature is a big influence in the collection I'm working on, as is like fairy tales and sometimes myth as well. I just think like a big part of my girlhood was reading and all these stories. And so having those influences be in the collection as well was important to me. But I came up with this story. I was trying to explain to like my little sister and her friends about malls, and she's a lot younger than me. and just like I was trying to explain the glory days of the mall, and I couldn't really, yeah, it was hard to paint that picture. And so I decided I wanted to try to do it in a story, and I wanted female friendship to be at the core, and just how deeply you feel it, but how oftentimes you lose it as well, and what that's like. And I just think my whole goal is to take girlhood seriously, because like being a young girl is really hard. And I think like for these tragic Gothic stories, usually it's older adults, or it's these big grand romances or something. But I think like the everyday life of just trying to grow up as a girl is hard and Gothic and terrible and amazing. And so I want my stories to capture that. And I have one story kind of about called Medusa, kind of about what it's like to, I guess, like be an early bloomer, and the attention, the negative attention you get from both your peers and adults for that. And then I have another story about kind of the body, and that story is, I listened to a daily episode about how there's now like AI nudes that teenagers are having to deal with, that people can take any picture of you fully clothed and turn it into a nude. And these pictures are being circulated of young girls. And like in the daily episode, the boys that did this got 1 day of suspension. And I just think like there's just always new challenges that children and girls are having to face. And this story is kind of tackling all the new challenges that this younger generation, like I talked to my sister a lot in writing this piece, are having to face that we didn't have to deal with. And I don't know, it just never gets easier. And even though some things do, there's always something to replace it. And yeah, I've gone on a long time, but that's what I write about.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And if you're ever, I grew up like very close to the Mall of America. So like this piece, like I just want to say this piece really like spoke to my childhood. One of the few malls I think that still has an aquarium and an amusement park, although both are pretty sad.
Hi, it's me again. I have a question for you, Adamu, if you don't mind. Sometimes I feel like it's really hard to capture and do someone justice in a poem, right? If you think about all of the things that that person meant to you. But I feel like your poem is not only really successful as a poem, but also as this beautiful tribute for your friend. Can you talk a little bit about the process of coming to write that, and how it felt to sort of graph that emotional reaction of grief and like put that on the page into poetry?
All right. Thank you so much, Maria. I wrote the poem after I was my friend died, and it was really a painful experience for me, because that was the first time I watched someone die. So it was very, very painful. So after the whole experience, I couldn't forgive myself. Let me put it like that. I couldn't forgive myself for some reasons. I kept blaming myself, like the guilt. I was like, because I saw him in a restless position and I couldn't help. So he's someone that we grew up together. We did everything together, and it was I felt very, very hopeless. So I turned to poetry. I started the poem, and I just tried to be as honest as I could in that poem. And at the end of the day, every line came out as they did. Yep. So, and that would be the first time I will like be really, really that open to myself in a poem, and just that was like just like one soft poem I've written. I think the best so far. Yep. So thank you so much for loving it, and thank you so much for sharing my grief with me. and for giving it a space at Chestnut Review. Thank you so much, Maria, and everyone.
Oh, thank you.
So I hope I answered your question.
No, I think that was great. I mean, it's really tough to work through something like that, especially somebody that you've been so close to. I mean, that resonates with what Caroline said about like female friendships, right? They're so precious, and they can get lost so easily. But I mean, I think that we have this culture of like undervaluing our friends and like thinking about romantic relationships, but there's so many different ways that people can be there for somebody else, people can be meaningful to someone else, that I think are really sort of highlighted in this issue. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hey everyone.
Yeah,
I have a question for you, Maria. First of all, like thank you so much to you and the rest of the editorial team because you guys are just amazing. Like Maria said, I'd sent in a packet of poems for editorial feedback, and like the notes I got on the poem were on all the poems were really great, and even all the other pieces I submitted actually got accepted into other publications. So thank you for that. So question for you and the rest of the editors. Because all of you are writers as well. So like I don't know, like what I'm trying to ask is like when we're going back to work as poets or writers or whatever, how do we have that editor's eye when we're looking at our own pieces to kind of like, I don't know, like to kind of like just refine them and make them more cogent?
I think it's super hard to do that ourselves, right? I mean, I wouldn't say a lot, I guess, of experience now, but I have maybe 5 years of experience doing like reading for lit mags, being an editor, and at various places, I've been able to engage with work in different ways because everybody has their own way of like judging the submissions, talking about them, working with writers. Like it's really great to see. And despite the many hours that I now have looking in the queue at submissions and being able to see things, like it's really hard for us to see those things in ourselves. I feel like getting some distance from the piece is great for that. Like, I just wrote something yesterday. I'm in this workshop this weekend, and I'm like, oh, that was great. Like, I'm so happy about X, Y, and Z. But I know if I put it away for a couple months and then come back with like fresh eyes, I'll be able to see some of the things that I couldn't see before because I'm not as like close to the time when I like was in the creative stream with it. Um, while I do feel like having that experience has really helped me with my own work, it's because I have systematized it into like a set of questions. So I gave this example, I think a couple days ago when I was talking about editing, but so much of fiction, like so many stories, and I think Brooke and Annie, you can probably roll your eyes at this, but like they begin when someone wakes up, like they've started their day, they're stretching, and okay, now I'm awake. So the story is starting. And that doesn't really always work. Maybe it almost never works because, yeah, it just doesn't. But it's not until you've seen so many of those stories that you're then like, okay, if I have my own story where it begins with my protagonist waking up, why is that? And is there a really strong reason? And if there's not, why can't I start it somewhere else? So a lot of the time I'll be looking at my own poetry and thinking about like, are the metaphors consistent? Do all the metaphors being in the same poem make sense together? Does that cohere, or is that just really confusing? Because if I'm on this whole metaphor about like, I don't know, making the most of a night out, then if I insert some other metaphor about like pigs flying and I start unpacking language related to that, like it gets really confusing really quickly. But I think that it's really tough to see that. Probably the best thing that has come out of my experience is not only a very slight ability to see some of the flaws in my own work more keenly than before, but the fact that I have friends and I have other people that like I really like, and I can just be like, hey, Brooke, do you like this opening? And Brooke can look at it right away. And because she's my friend, I'm not like, oh my God, like I'm so offended, Brooke. If she's like, why is your character just like waking up with the story? Like that doesn't make any sense. I'm just like, oh, it's really good to have beta readers or somebody. It doesn't have to be a trained editor. It can just be somebody that is enthusiastic about reading, and all they have to do is ask you those little questions, and that can really help. Yeah.
I want to build on what you're saying, Maria. Like, I'm just nodding over here. My head's going to fall off because I agree so much with all of these points. The question itself is so insightful because you mentioned like an editor's eye. And I think a lot of this really does have to do with vision. You don't want to think like an editor while you're writing. That's not going to be helpful. Like, just write, but then give yourself some space to look at it new when you're editing. And sometimes time is the best way to do that, to have a little bit of space. I can read someone else's work and see it more clearly than I can see my own. And the only way for me to get better at editing my own work is giving myself a little bit more space, so that I'm looking at it in a new way. Another thing that might help you in your own writing is just to start thinking about it when you're reading. So actually reading more authors, reading more diversely, coming in contact with more ideas is going to like fuel your own writing practice and give you like more tools when you get to that place where you're like, something is wrong and I have no idea what, and maybe everything's terrible and I should just throw it out. At that point, you might just need like a new thought to come in, a new idea. And it's really helpful to have other ideas to pull from. We had a former contributor join our staff, and I remember he was like concerned that reading other people's work might hurt his own writing. And I think, in fact, what he found is seeing how other writers are tackling things or approaching topics in ways he never thought of. It actually gives you some fuel, and you're not being derivative. You're just like building your own vocabulary and your own ability to see new ways of approaching things. So my last point is just that like I have a lot of grace with other people and their work, so I try to extend that to myself. It's so much harder, but just try to remember that as well. When you're working on your own piece, it's always harder than someone else's, and you're just out there trying, so you deserve as much grace as anyone else. And I'm doing a workshop on this topic next week if you're interested. Totally forgot about that. Thank you, Samira, for plugging that in the chat.
Yeah, I think I might come. I was like, I have guests coming, but I have a writer friend coming, so we might do the weird thing where like we share a room and come to Zoom. Yeah, because she's a fiction writer. I've been helping her with her stuff, and like, yeah, it's good just to have someone to bounce ideas off of and things. But yeah, I totally agree. I think in terms of pollinating your own writing and helping out with those kind of dips where you don't feel inspiration, it's so great to see something. And like today, like there's so many things I want to go off and like paint flowers and learn about alcohol inks, and I want to like explore different ways of like formatting my pieces. I have this piece I'm writing about a not open relationship that's based on some things, and like, yeah, I'm trying to like move the pieces around the people that I'm talking about. So like there's so many things that like kind of cross sections that help me with my own creative inspiration and my own projects. So yeah, absolutely. We are actually hiring readers right now. So if you're interested, you can shoot us an email, and we're looking for people both in poetry and prose. So yeah. Yes, I mean, if we found a writing genie, could be like, I want all my pieces to be published in Paris for you. That'd be great. But I think until then, we have to keep being patient and working hard. Yes. All right. Well, I think this is an awesome note to end on. It's great to see some people sneaking in. So just big shout out at the end to Praise, who is our other associate prose editor, and Seema, who is a poetry reader. Yeah. So thanks everyone for being here. Thank you for your amazing work. We definitely want you to go out in the world and keep creating and publishing and working on these longer projects and all those things. So yeah, if you have good news, please come back and tell us about it so we can promote you on social media and be excited and shout about you. You are in good hands with Samira, as I promised. And our chapbooks will open in the fall. So if you do have work, you are welcome to submit chapbooks. The magazine has a cool down time of 2 years, so you can submit again in the spring for consideration in the summer of 2020. Oh my God, 6. I don't want to think about that. But if you have a chapbook project, feel free to send it our way. Thank you all so much. Keep being stubborn and keep creating. Right. Thank you. See you.